Welcome in on ABC 13. Our live stream coverage continues of this major weather event here in the Houston area. I'm Jonathan Bruce. A disaster declaration declared for Harris County. Just the tip of what we have been experiencing over the past 12 hours or so. But for the first time, we're able to get Skyeye 13 into the air. They have not been able to fly due to many of these weather conditions and the combinations that we've experienced today. But Skyeye 13 is live in the air right now, surveying what we've seen transpire. Tammy Rose, our Skyeye 13 reporter, is with us now. Tammy, first, can you just kind of orient us and our viewers to where you are and then what you're looking at?
Jonathan, we're just south of Plum Grove. Pilot Mike Hill and I have started the trek north along the East Fork San Jacinto River, just north of the Grand Parkway, where you saw that shed underwater. You saw FM 1485 closed already, expecting those rapid rising waters and all the flooding that we expect. So this is just south of Plum Grove. We were over here a few days ago with all the excessive rain and stuff and saw a lot of flooding just north of Plum Grove. But these are some of the homes that we have to worry about along the river, not only with the rain and the wash and all that coming down. Again, we're going to continue to fly north and see if we can see any homes that have already been touched by the floodwaters, and of course keep an eye on it from up above.
Tammy Rose reporting, and again, you see the river that we've seen sort of subsumed so many homes and buildings, and a lot of these areas, and I'll get you all the specifics in a minute, are under mandatory evacuation orders. And Tammy, again, this is, I know you have the map technology as well. Feel free to sort of pull that up to better orient us, but I guess you're making your way north from Hobby and kind of just now getting into these scenes.
Yeah, so first of all, we had a ground stop at Hobby Airport since about 11:30, and when they finally lifted it, it took us a while to get out of Hobby Airport, and now we are near, you can see by our exclusive sky map at the top of your screen, Plum Grove Road and County Road 351. We were here 48 hours ago when they had all of that heavy rain and some of these homes were flooded. So again, you can kind of see that their rain still receding from that event, and now with all the other rain that's come in, we expect to see some more flooding tonight. Again, along the East Fork San Jacinto River, just north of the Grand Parkway near Plum Grove, and you can kind of see a couple of vehicles that are still kind of stuck in the water, and people again trying to prepare for the event that's going to come tonight. You got somebody here that's got like a heavy ATV driving around in the waters right now, starting to get prepared, and hopefully we're just hoping and praying that everybody will be able to get out in time. We also saw some cattle and cows in this area that were stranded. We saw a horse that was tied up and kind of just surrounded by water. So very scary, not only for people, for the animals, having to prepare for a event that's going to happen sometime tonight.
Again, our live coverage continues on our ABC 13 live stream. We have seen so many water rescues out today with fan boats and rafts, and some people resorting to ropes to pull people out. People stranded on their rooftops being rescued from this high water. Looks like, right? I mean, Tammy talked about pets and livestock that have been displaced. And Tammy, one thing that we know, I mean, a lot of times in a situation like this, when you talk about livestock, people have been relocated. There's mandatory evacuations in this area, the East Fork of the San Jacinto River. A lot of times it's hard to account for your pets and your livestock, as well as get your own family to safety.
And a lot of people, unfortunately, wait too long. We were just south of Lake Livingston Dam as well, and there were so many people that were, trapped in that neighborhood just south of the dam, when they were releasing the water because the banks had overflown. And then, when we were flying over it, I mean, it's just so scary to see, like I said, not just the livestock and people trapped about. We haven't seen any water rescues because it's hard for us to get up in time when all of that is going on, because we can not fly in that type of weather. But again, this is, you know, exclusive sky map technology now up at the top of your screen, Plum Grove Road and County Road 351. We're going to continue along the East Fork, flying north to see what else we could see. Right now, you know, it's relatively in its banks, but again, it's expected to rise sometime later this evening. Jonathan?
It's Tammy Rose reporting from Skyeye 13, and we will check back in with Tammy in just a little bit. We're going to stay with the visuals here. Again, Skyeye 13 just able to get up this afternoon, and of course we're the only news station in the market with the exclusive access to the helicopter. We've had our drones in the air earlier today when the helicopters couldn't fly, as we continue to survey everything. I just want to kind of go through, if you're just joining us, which I doubt you are, frankly, because this is affecting so many people. But for one, our ABC 13 weather alert team, weather team has extended our weather alert day through Friday, and there is a flood watch that is still in effect for much of southeast Texas as these rivers continue to rise and crest, as dams are let out to sort of try to control all of that. Your flood warnings are parts of Grimes, Walker, Montgomery, Northern Harris, Liberty, San Jacinto, Polk, and Trinity counties. And of course, our weather team has been all over this, monitoring certainly what has happened with the storms today, but also the river levels as well. And a lot of this water that we saw, 10, 11 inches from our gauge on Lake Livingston. I mean, some of the rise in the crest approaching Hurricane Harvey levels. The San Jacinto River, I heard Judge Lena Hidalgo say 78 feet now over sea level. They expect it to get tonight, which is just a monstrous level and affecting and displacing, frankly, so many people. The mandatory evacuations, again, are in order right now on the East Fork of the San Jacinto River due to the flooding, and there is more rain expected. We're in the clear for a while now, but you know, all of these people who've been displaced, who've had their homes flooded, their cars flooded, are far from in the clear, right? Really just coming to grips with so much of this. So we're taking you here on our ABC 13 live stream up to ABC News, Eyewitness News at 6 o'clock. In just a minute, we're going to check in with our assignment desk. Jason Jobs, our news director, Keaton Fox, is going to join us as well to kind of talk through what our purpose is in going about covering a massive weather event like this, and also look at what is to come, both for us at ABC 13 and certainly for residents in the area. We did hear a press conference this afternoon from Mayor John Whitmire and Judge Lena Hidalgo, separate press conferences, mind you. Mayor Whitmire was in Kingwood, where we saw a lot of heavy flooding, and Judge Lena Hidalgo was at Houston Transtar. Take a couple of live looks around right now, and then we'll check in with our assignment desk and then go back to Tammy Rose. Again, you're seeing water in so many areas. Now, I-59 in the Shepherd area has been shut down in both directions for much of the day, to just give you an idea of how bad that water was. The flooding from the rain right up to a foot in some places. I-59 totally shut down in both directions, well north of Houston. 18-wheelers kind of just sunk into the water there. We saw many of those videos. As we take a look at 13 alert radar right now, the storms have moved on out and are heading eastward, but you can still see that mass of storm, just how big this thing was when it moved through southeast Texas earlier today. Now, I want to check in now to our assignment desk and go to Jason Jobs, who's standing by, and then we will go back to Skyeye 13 as they continue to survey the damage. Jason, from your point of view, what has stood out to you today as we've sent our reporters all across the Houston area, southeast Texas, certainly to the north of Houston has been the main area. What has stood out to you today throughout our coverage?
Well, just the weather event itself is just all that the rain that we've had and the aftermath of that, and these neighborhoods that are impacted north of us. And like we've been saying, all these areas along the East Fork of the San Jacinto River, the West Fork of the San Jacinto River, all these counties north of us are severely impacted. We've got crews that we've been spread out throughout the day, in the Conroe area. Obviously, we're concerned about Lake Conroe. We're trying to utilize our aerial coverage as good as we can right now. We have a drone shot where Chaz Miller was earlier. He was south of Lake Conroe, showed some good stuff. And now we're utilizing our helicopter as we're finally able to get up, because we've been grounded because we've had the weather, we've had a low ceiling. So we're just now able to get up and get these aerial views here. So Tammy, our reporter in the sky, is on the East Fork of the San Jacinto River. She's up approaching the Cleveland, Texas area right now, and we're just going to keep going up and down and see what we can see. Obviously, we've had some major impacts on some of the roadways, and that was a concern this morning with some of our morning crews, and the mobility couldn't get to certain areas, can't leave certain areas. So we've got to be very strategic in how we get to and from where we're going to go and what we're going to cover. And it's a tricky situation. So this really helps getting Skyeye up in the air so we can see.
And speaking of Skyeye, I want to go back to Tammy Rose. Tammy, it looks like you've seen a point now. If you could kind of orient us where you are, this is an example of roads being totally shut down. We see that road kind of just dying off into those floodwaters.
Yeah, and people just, waiting it out. It looks like some of the cars stranded, but this is Plum Grove Road, and we're actually in between Plum Grove and Cleveland. So, just a sad situation for so many people that can't get into their community or out of their community because of the saturated grounds and all of the rain. So you kind of see people over here, some of them in their vehicles, so they kind of got stranded there. And then you can kind of see the rapidly moving water there. And just east of here, we saw several trailers underneath water as well. So a very scary situation for so many people and pets. We really feel for everybody, but we're glad now Skyeye 13 can be up in the air to give you the better perspective, the picture of what everything looks like right now, and just hoping everybody will heed the warnings and get out before the rising river gets out of its banks and we see more flooding and more dangerous situations. Like right now, this road completely underwater. It looks more like a river than a road.
And again, mandatory evacuations issued right now for the East Fork of the San Jacinto River there in Montgomery County, and Judge Lena Hidalgo declaring a disaster declaration for the area today. Tammy, it doesn't look like these vehicles and people that are stranded on the road, it's not like they can just turn around and go the other way.
Yeah, and I don't know if these are people trying to head back to home, maybe to get some, stuff out of their homes, or if they're just traveling through, but what's scary right now, this isn't an area you want to be in for tonight because the waters are only going to rise. So, these people here that are kind of stranded along the freeway, I don't know if maybe they can kind of turn around. Look at that, a pickup truck completely submerged. So it's like they're almost, stuck here, which again, very scary because we expect, look at that, the road looks like it's buckled. And we do have a photographer there on the ground wondering, road signs are a little hard to see a little bit through everything that I'm looking at through the glare and stuff. But, this is kind of scary to see all these people along Plum Grove Road that are trapped because there's water on both ends of it. So people are kind of just, probably hoping it's going to recede enough to get by before, the water starts rising again tonight. So just very scary to see this.
And Tammy, you pointed out how fast that water is moving on either side, and that is what we've seen in a lot of the more rural areas today is depending on how deep the water is or not, because it's moving with such force, a lot of times it can wash a road right out, as we see more cars, right, that likely experienced a lot of that, just the force of the water moving them off the road and then kind of carrying them and lifting them. But you have to think about the force that this water is moving as well.
Yeah, it really just takes not a lot amount of water, rushing water, to lift a vehicle, as we saw today by that semi earlier that you guys were showing that was washed, from the road into the ditch, and now we've got, this vehicle that didn't make it very far. So I think it's, like 6 inches of fast-moving water that can literally move the vehicle off the road. And then look at this, you got people standing in the water, which isn't exactly, safe either, just because you don't know what's all in the water as well. So not a good idea to be walking around, in this water either. But it looks like, more people stranded on this side. So obviously the low-lying areas getting covered with water, and more expected tonight, to fall out of the banks, of the East Fork San Jacinto River. So just a scary time right now. Just hoping and praying that everybody makes it through the night and everything, and heeds the warning. If you can get out, definitely get out, or the saying, turn around, don't drown, as those vehicles right now thankfully are turning around.
Astonishing live views right now from Skyeye 13, and a great narration and commentary from our Skyeye 13 reporter Tammy Rose. I want to welcome in right now our news director Keaton Fox as we continue again to look at Skyeye 13 with live coverage there on the right. Keaton, how do we, when we get into a situation like this, balance the telling the story of the people that have been displaced, also informing the public in terms of what has happened and what needs to happen?
It's difficult sometimes, because one of the conversations we've been having here in the newsroom over the last few days is this what we could call or consider sort of expected flooding? There's a lot of flooding that we usually see along the Brazos River, along the Trinity, that along near San Jac, where it's like, okay, well, that happens every time it rains. Right. The people there know it's going to happen, and it's somewhat expected. This is nowhere near that now. The levels that we're seeing really are starting to rival what we saw during Hurricane Harvey, Jonathan, and that, I think, is what's so scary about what's happening in a lot of these communities, is that you get to a point. It sort of reminds me of the folks who live along the coast. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, we might get a Cat 1 hurricane, and yeah, we know what to expect. We're not going to evacuate for that. We've gone through 100 of those. And so people get very comfortable with what's going to happen. But I think what we've seen here is that people thought they could ride this one out, and likely were very, very wrong in a number of the things that we're seeing. So it's a very scary situation that continues to unfold. And the other thing that's important to remember here, Jonathan, is that this is the beginning of this story. The water is going to continue to rise over the next 24 to 48 hours, if not longer than that, as the water continues to make its way south. So this is just the beginning of this for a lot of folks. Chaz Miller was out at that restaurant there in Conroe today, and he was witnessing the water coming up as he was out there. So it's a scary situation for all. Can I ask a favor of Tammy Rose while we have Tammy's doing a fantastic job up there in the air. Tammy, I know with your Churchill navigation system, can you give us the big map of where you are to give us some perspective of where the chopper is?
Yeah, so this is along Plum Grove Road and Baptist Church, where you can see that pickup truck submerged in water. And then as I pan over Baptist Church Loop Road, we've got a dozen or so drivers stranded on that road. They can't turn back and they can't go forward. So, a scary situation, because we do expect for these waters to rise even more. So, I'm not exactly sure, what they're doing or who's going to help them to get them out. I don't know if they're waiting to see if that water is going to recede enough for them to, continue to move like east along Baptist Church Road or what. But this water looks a little bit less, and you can see people kind of walking through it. I guess, that's another option, to get out of here, that they might just have to leave their cars. And I think, these people walked from the other end of the road where they can't move here, and maybe they're just going to kind of, come up with a game plan, because I don't think it's going to recede enough before we're going to see these waters rise by tonight. So, the best thing, like they say, turn around, don't drown. Like these vehicles over here can turn around and move in the other direction. And we did see some people turn around, but those other ones are just kind of stuck or stranded there. So just a very scary situation. They might just have to leave their vehicles.
Tammy Rose reporting from Skyeye 13. And Keaton, one of the things that, two things that stood out to me from what you just said. For one is, as we heard all of the residents talk to us today, it's like, exactly, like, they're prepared for this. They know this can happen based on where we live, the vernacular they use. I mean, the fan boats are ready to go, but all of them to a person sort of said, we haven't seen this before. I mean, we talked to one guy who made a rescue. He said, yeah, I've done rescues before, but never one where I had to call in a helicopter. So just sort of the scale of this. And then the other thing is, you talk about just the beginning of the event. For everyone who's displaced right now, their cars, their homes, their families. It's just the beginning for them and their story. And we see it in the moment, right? And then we go to the next shot, Lake Conroe. But those people, I can't imagine what is going through their head about what is to come for days and weeks.
Yeah, and that's where I hate to keep going back to that comparison of Hurricane Harvey. But if you remember Hurricane Harvey, what happened was that the hurricane made landfall on August 25th of 2017. We didn't start to see impacts of flooding until several days later. And then even then, after the skies had cleared and were sunny, the waters were still rising because you had so much water that was being released from the reservoirs, from the Addicks and the Barker into Buffalo Bayou, and then you had all of the other reservoirs. So actually, can you take the utility PC there?
Absolutely.
Because it actually has the graphic there. You can see some of the blue icons there, where some of the dams and the reservoirs are. So Lake Livingston there in the center of your screen that has sort of the little yellow icon, Lake Conroe to the left and to the south there. And you have to remember too, on Lake Livingston and Lake Conroe, you have two problems, because not only is it the water that's downstream from the dam that is being released at very, very high levels, but all of the water that backs up on the north side of the reservoir. So it is a situation that now, as the water is being released, it's going to take some time to continue to flow downstream. That water is going to come up, and for the people of, I think, remember the folks of Kingwood when we were reporting back then, it took sometimes days for that water to get to the point where all of a sudden it was inside homes. And that's the scary thing, is that I think that there are many stories that we're going to be telling in the next couple of days that have not been affected yet.
Yeah, what is ABC 13's plan as we go forward?
It is a full court press to make sure that we're telling the stories in these communities of what is happening. And you mentioned this earlier, Jonathan. I think it's important to reiterate is that ABC 13 has not skimped on resources here. We still are the only television station in the market that has access to our own chopper, and that's really critical. We are the only ones that can go to Tammy and say, Tammy, what are you seeing? We're the only ones that can do that, and it's really important that we have those access to those resources to be able to tell stories in a way that no other television station can. We also have the power of so many great reporters who have been in the field today in conditions that are not the best, obviously raining all day and then getting into the water like this. So we're going to continue to have reporters fanned out across our area telling really important stories that matter to folks.
Just look at this line of cars just trudging their way through the water as Tammy Rose zooms in there. And again, Eyewitness News at 6 o'clock coming up. But before you go, I want to ask you about this kind of subplot, if you will, between Mayor John Whitmire and Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo, and how we cover it. Is it a story or not?
Sure.
They had dueling press conferences today. We struggled to sort of navigate, okay, which information do we get out? Because they were literally doing them at the same time, the city's leader and the county's leader. Whitmire was asked about it, and he said, this is not a story.
Yeah.
Is it a story? What's your take on that situation?
It's definitely a story. Now, how much it is dramatized is sometimes up to the media, right? And I think that's where you can get into trouble if you're not careful. We don't want to hype something that isn't there, but I think it is certainly important to discuss the fact that two of the area's major leaders were talking about life-saving information at the exact same time. That's a story. And I think making sure that we reiterate to our viewers why that's important. Well, who are you going to listen to?
Right.
You had to make a choice. I think that's where when we're talking about how we cover it, they put us in a position where we had to have a two-box up, the split screen, and we had to bounce between sources to try to figure out who we were going to put on the air, because we only have one source when we're doing this thing. Now, of course, I guess we could have put it on separate channels or something like that, but what?
Right.
That's insane.
Shouldn't have to do
right.
that. And it was difficult to decide, and I felt like as we went back and forth between Judge Hidalgo and Mayor John Whitmire, I'm like, oh, well, I'm glad we jumped in now, because I think we missed what they were saying 20 seconds earlier.
The other piece about that, Jonathan, too, is that it is very different from the norms that we've seen in years past. We were talking earlier with some of the leadership here at the station. We can't, at least in recent memory, recall a time where we had to make a choice.
Right.
who are we going to put on the air? And even if it was one of those things, you look at the real timeline. I think it's important that we talk about that. We know that they're intentionally had separate times originally.
Hidalgo's press conference was set for 1. Whitmire's office came out about 15-20 minutes later and said our press conference is going to be at 2 o'clock, different areas.
So it was intended to be separate, but then the fact that they both started within, I think, 53 seconds of each other, well, that's a problem. And I think what you're ultimately doing is you're forcing your constituents, the people who need life-saving information, to make a choice, and that's a problem. And so maybe was it an innocent mistake, a slight misstep? Maybe, but certainly I would disagree with anyone who would consider that not to be worth talking about in this context, and especially in the first major event for a new mayor. It's something that's worth discussing.
Well said. Keaton Fox, our news director, with us. Keaton, thanks so much.
Jonathan, great job.
Want to check back in, and again, Eyewitness News at 6 coming up in minutes. Let's go back up to Skyeye 13's Tammy Rose. Tammy, it looks like you've relocated the chopper a little bit. What are you seeing at this point?
Well, we started seeing some vehicles move on Plum Grove Road. So one of them just kind of took a chance and made it through, and then you saw all the vehicles moving through. So that is good news that some people were able to make it out of here, because unfortunately the driver of the pickup truck, not so lucky. You can see it almost fully submerged in water on its side. We still have some motorists stranded on Baptist Church Loop. Look at that. They were not able to get over there, and then the road ahead of them is fully, engulfed with water as well. So we've got some people standing around hoping and praying that the water will recede enough for them to either go back or forward. Their best chance, I think, from looking at the helicopter perspective, is going to be that way. Certainly not behind them. It looks like it's just too deep. And as I pan over, again, this is Baptist Church Loop. We've got a couple other people that were hoping to make it through, and a few of them turned around, and a few of them are waiting it out. Jonathan?
Tammy, is there even any way for a response vehicle to get in there?
Yeah, those high-level response vehicles might be able to make it through here, or just tell them, like you saw some of those people walking through the water. They might just have to leave their vehicles. They'll be able to go this way, as we saw people walking through. But unfortunately, as you get close to Plum Grove Road, where now people are moving along on that road, however, they're not going to be able to get through. From my perspective, it looks like that water is pretty high right there, as you can see from the pickup truck that is fully submerged in it.
Skyeye 13's Tammy Rose reporting. Again, ABC 13, the only station in this area with the ability to get our own helicopter up in the air and survey the damage. We have had crews across Porter and Cold Spring and Conroe and Huffman, you name it. We have been there today because it's important for us to get the information out and tell the stories about what's happening to our community and in our community. And as Keaton said, this is just the start of it, unfortunately, in terms of what's going to happen with these flood warnings. So many of our counties right now are in flood warnings, though the rain and the big storms have subsided. Our weather alert remains through Friday. The flood watch is still in effect until 1 p.m. tomorrow. Chief Forecaster David Tillman said, hey, don't be surprised if that actually extends beyond 1 o'clock because of the data that we're seeing. And so just a really, really critical time right now and going forward, especially here in in this mandatory evacuation area that we were looking at east of the San Jacinto River there in the Montgomery County area. We're doing what we can, right, to see this coverage and bring it to y'all, but mostly our thoughts are with everyone that we see right here on the road, just absolutely stranded with nowhere to go, not much to do in terms of a recourse or getting out of there because of these high flood waters and everything that we've seen today. So Eyewitness News is coming up at 6 o'clock. Where you're watching us, you can get Eyewitness News at 6. I see our whole team standing by. Skyeye 13 is going to be there as well as our coverage continues of this major weather event. Again, a disaster declaration declared here for the area and so much more still to come. Our thanks to Tammy Rose, Jason Jobs, Keaton Fox for joining us, Desiree as well for helping us bring this coverage here to you. But don't go anywhere. Eyewitness News at 6 coming up. ABC 13 continues your coverage of severe weather in the Houston area and Southeast Texas.